The pure school beauty braved the storm and rushed to my door, just to sleep with me for one night. But I intentionally refused her, and the next day, the school beauty died tragically in the small alley near my house. After that, I always carried a sense of guilt, and after passing the exam to enter the police academy, I frantically searched for the real culprit. But the heavy rain had washed away all traces, and for 10 whole years, I still couldn't find any clues. But a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed, bringing me back to this fateful crossroads. Classmate Goo, I heard your parents are doing business outside, and you're home alone. Could you let me stay at your house for a few days? I looked at the person in front of me, unconsciously reaching out to touch her. Bai Wei instinctively wanted to dodge, but in order to seek help, she tried her best to endure it. She stood frozen in place, a piercing cold sensation transmitting from my fingertips. Her trembling reaction told me clearly that she was still alive. I had really come back. Sorry. I hugged her tightly in my arms. Amidst the sound of the storm, there was a moment of silence between the two of us. She stiffened in my arms, not daring to move. I quickly let go and stepped back to the edge of the lamplight, seeing that you were so cold. So I unconsciously wanted to give you some warmth. I'm sorry. It's okay. I stepped aside and invited her into the house. Looking at her bloodless face, my thoughts couldn't help but surge. In my previous life, the culprit disappeared without a trace after committing the crime in Shanghai City. This time I not only want to save her, but also use my years of criminal investigation experience. Tonight, I will go to the crime scene to catch the culprit. Bai Wei stood uneasily at the entrance, her hands nervously grabbing her hem, seeing me turn around to get slippers. She became even more panicked. My socks are wet. It will dirty the slippers. I can just walk in barefoot. I will help you mop the floor later. On a stormy night, a man and a woman alone in a room, both soaking wet. She fell into a state of extreme unease, digging her fingernails deep into her palms, forcing herself to stay calm. But when I turned away, she quickly used the corner of her eye to observe the surroundings, until she saw the hot tea on the table and some messy cardboard boxes. Her stiff back slightly relaxed. Here's a hair towel. If you don't mind, use it first. See, could you lend me a set of clothes, too? Only then did I notice she was tightly gripping her soaking wet shirt. You have to change clothes anyway. Why don't you go take a hot shower? Otherwise, you'll catch a cold. The guest room doesn't have a bathtub. Go to the bathroom in my room. I'll go run the hot water. Bai Wei shyly lowered her head, replying with a tiny sound like a mosquito. The sound of water flowing loudly echoed in the bathroom. Bai Wei looked at my busy back. Finally gathering all her courage, classmate Goo. Just call me by my name. Are you wondering why I haven't asked the reason you're asking to stay over? Bai Wei looked up in surprise. Her eyes were full of curiosity, and she nodded. A beautiful girl like you, knocking on my door, asking to stay on a day with such heavy rain. There must be a compelling reason. Hearing these words, Bai Wei's eyes turned red. After testing the water temperature, I stood up and slowly walked in front of her. I suddenly placed my hand on the wall next to her ear, trapping her in my arms. I'm not worried about you having any ulterior motives, but aren't you afraid that by staying here, I might have bad intentions towards you? Bai Wei leaned against the wall, gently biting her lip. She only felt a surge of warmth spreading throughout her body. Bai Wei, I trust you. Her beautiful eyes looked straight at me boldly. This answer stopped my intention of probing further, thinking that I still have important things to do tonight. I smiled and withdrew my hand. Go take a shower. As for clothes to change into, with your figure, this hoodie can totally be worn as a dress. Just make do with it. Put your clothes in the washing machine. After washing, put them in the dryer and they will dry quickly. Bai Wei turned around and went into the bathroom. This thank you was half thanking me for letting her stay and half thanking my understanding and tolerance. Listening to the sound of water flowing in the bathroom, I smiled and turned to leave the bedroom to make ginger tea. After a while, the bathroom door was pushed open. Bai Wei walked out wearing the baggy hoodie, her cheeks rosy from the heat, revealing the smooth white skin above her knees. Bai Wei slipped her feet into the warmed cotton slippers and the shyness in her heart lessened quite a bit. Right after stepping out of the bedroom, she smelled the sweet and warm aroma of honey ginger tea. I brought the ceramic cup closer, my eyes skimming over the wide collar of her hoodie. My Adam's apple moved slightly. "Drink some ginger tea." Bai Wei took the cup and took small sips. "Let me cook some noodles for you." "Is it too much trouble?" "What trouble? It will only take a few minutes." "Sit down. I'll add 2 eggs." I was just about to stand up when I was pulled back by a small hand. "Let me help you." Arriving at the kitchen, my skilled knife handling made Bai Wei extremely surprised. On the cutting board, tomatoes and ham were quickly sliced evenly. Bai Wei stepped onto a stool, standing on tiptoes to grab the egg carton on the highest shelf. Following her movement, the oversized hoodie was flipped up for a moment. I accidentally glanced over, and my face immediately turned bright red. She hurriedly pulled the hem down, and as a result, she lost her balance on the stool. I hastily reached out to support her from behind, but my palm accidentally slipped to a place it shouldn't have touched. Her body went limp, falling straight into my arms. The sandalwood scent on her hair and the citrus scent of the body wash suddenly blended together. Both of us stood frozen on the spot at the same time until the water in the soup pot boiled over. It broke this ambiguous atmosphere. I hurriedly retracted my hand, took half a step back, and shoved the ladle into her hand. "Stir it." When I turned around, I accidentally saw my earlobes glowing red in the mirror. It turns out that for all these years, it wasn't that I didn't have feelings for girls, but that there was no second person who could make my heart flutter like this. Bai Wei blushed, lowering her head to stir the noodles. The crackling sound of peanuts frying in oil perfectly covered the thumping sound of heartbeats. The aroma of tomato sauce noodles quickly filled the kitchen. I brought the noodles to the table, intentionally avoiding her fingertips. "Be careful, it's hot." "Change to whichever channel you want to watch." The moment the TV lit up, Bai Wei suddenly dropped her chopsticks. The screen was playing the program I had forgotten to switch away from. An extremely hot scene. I coughed awkwardly, quickly switching to the movie selection interface, and casually opened Crayon Shin-chan. I almost forgot that year it was exactly because I was afraid of being caught watching this that I refused to let the school beauty into my house. Luckily, after so many years of struggling out there, my skin had gotten much thicker, my face wasn't red, my heart wasn't beating fast. Pretending nothing happened, I quickly changed the channel. Bai Wei also quickly changed the subject. "It turns out your cooking skills are so good." I took a tissue, gently wiping away the tiny beads of sweat on the tip of her nose. "Eat slowly. There's still some in the pot." She focused on eating the noodles, finishing all the noodles and the sauce, her face full of satisfaction. "You're full after just one bowl?" As soon as her voice faded, I instinctively looked up at the wall clock. There was only about half an hour left until the time the murder occurred in my previous life. I must see the true face of the culprit clearly. There wasn't much time left. I prepared to immediately go to the area near the crime scene to investigate. I got a cup of water and draped a blanket over her. "Since you're full, just stay in the living room and watch TV to digest. Leave the bowls and plates there. I'll wash them when I get back. I'm going out to buy some late-night snacks. I'll be back quickly. You're still going out in such heavy rain?" Reaching the door, I suddenly stopped and turned around. I worried that the culprit had pre-planned this and might have even followed her and hidden nearby. "Remember carefully before I get back. No matter who rings the doorbell, do not open it. I have my keys. I won't ring the bell." "Yes," Bai Wei obediently nodded like a little kitten, wrapping herself tightly in the blanket. But when the door closed, looking at the empty room, she curled up on the sofa. Quietly waiting for me to return, I opened the black umbrella, stepping into the rain. Looking at my waterproof watch, it was currently 21:58. In the previous life, the forensics estimated Bai Wei's time of death to be around 10:30. My target tonight is the place located on the route she definitely had to pass by in the previous life. That 24-hour convenience store. In the previous life, Bai Wei borrowed an umbrella at the convenience store. She finished eating before walking towards the alley where the murder happened. Although she's staying at my house tonight, I must confirm whether the timeline will autocorrect itself. To let someone else die in by Wei's place there, I absolutely will not allow this to happen. On the way, I took out my phone to check the home surveillance camera. On the screen, Bai Wei was hugging a pillow, curled up on the sofa watching TV. After confirming she was obediently at home and not running anywhere, I quickened my pace just as I got near the convenience store. I heard a grunt. Next to the trash can at the end of the alley, a skinny figure was shivering. A few thugs were surrounding him, punching and kicking, aggressively forcing him to tell them what he was hiding in his hands. The person pinned to the ground was tightly gripping a light gray handkerchief. Next to him was a dropped tin box. Yi Si, I recognized him immediately. This was my socially isolated classmate. Frequently bullied. Yi Si, hearing my voice, those thugs suddenly turned their heads, their faces instantly turning pale. Because my parents also had some influence in Shanghai City, these thugs were usually very wary of me. They immediately fled in a panic like they had seen a ghost, leaving only the sound of rain tapping on the corrugated iron roof in the alley. I squatted down, steadily holding the umbrella over Yi Si. Are you okay? Do you need me to take you to the hospital for a checkup? On his wrist, there was still an old scar from a burn 3 months ago. I reached out my hand intending to help him up, but he pulled his hand back as if electrocuted. Sliding the tin box against the wall, a few crayons and half a bag of cat food rolled into a dirty puddle. Thank you. He lowered his head to pick up his backpack, his soaking wet hair covering the teardrop mole by his eye. I noticed that under the nail of his left thumb was a dark brown stain, looking like dried blood. It's already dried, it's raining cats and dogs, and you still came out to feed the stray cats. He suddenly coughed violently, his bony shoulders trembling in the rain. I took off my outer jacket and threw it to him. Hey, at this moment, an image from the surveillance camera in my previous life suddenly flashed in my mind. In the previous life, Bai Wei seemed to have seen something outside the convenience store before walking towards the alley. Seeing Yi Si at this moment, I immediately had a sudden realization. At that time, Bai Wei probably saw Yi Si being bullied by others. In my mind, countless details of the previous life quickly flashed by. If in the previous life Bai Wei left the convenience store to stop this bullying, then with her soaking wet appearance, it was very likely to turn the thug's bullying behavior into sexual harassment. I tried to recall Yi Si's face on Monday in my previous life. His injuries back then were much more severe than now, but he didn't have any major reaction to Bai Wei's death. This showed that in the previous life, it's highly possible that he risked his life to hold back the thugs so that Bai Wei wouldn't be taken away by them. If it wasn't them, then the real culprit was someone else. After reasoning, I immediately pinpointed an important piece of information. The murder weapon, the cut was extremely clean. And on a stormy day like this, who would bring such a sharp knife outside? That person is the biggest suspect. Thinking about how those 3 thugs were very likely to carry knives, I immediately listed them as suspects. As for Yi Si, who was full of injuries, in the previous life he managed to live peacefully until graduation. So for now, I had to temporarily put his matters aside. If you're okay, go home quickly. I lifted my foot about to leave. I stopped again, glanced at Yi Si's broken umbrella, and shoved the black umbrella in my hand into his hands. Your umbrella is broken. Use mine. I still have things to do and can't walk you back. Walk carefully. Go home, without waiting for Yi Si to refuse. I plunged headfirst into the pouring rain, running until I disappeared into the rain. Because the rain was too heavy, those 3 thugs couldn't run far. They were hiding under an awning to take shelter from the rain. They were both swearing and plotting, discussing whether they should put a sack over my head and beat me up, but they were afraid of my family background. I dashed in front of them at extremely high speed. The 3 thugs were startled. Thinking I came to ask for money, they hastily waved their hands and stepped back. Hey, 3 good friends, let me borrow something to see. The 3 of them looked at each other, their eyes full of wariness. I'm not borrowing money, borrowing something else. The 3 of them looked at me with faces full of doubt, while I stared intently at them, flashing a seemingly incredibly harmless smile. Borrow a knife. The 3 thugs froze on the spot, clearly not understanding my request. You three are gangsters. Don't tell me you hit the streets without carrying any knives on you. The taunt was indeed effective. The blue-haired thug, unconvinced, pulled a butterfly knife out of his pocket right in front of me. I only needed one glance to confirm that this was absolutely not the knife in the forensic report. That fruit knife with the smooth cut. This type is too flashy. I will pay $100 to buy a knife similar to a fruit knife. Good knife. Unfortunately, I only brought $100. Never mind. I ignored the thug's curses and suspicious gazes, turned around, and walked straight away. Rushing back into the freezing rain, these three thugs didn't have the murder weapon I was looking for. This clue was completely broken. A feeling of extreme impatience was burning in my heart. Actually, the simplest way to solve the case would be to invite Bai Wei out like in the previous life, and then secretly follow her. Then I could catch the real culprit red-handed at the scene. But being reborn once more, at the moment I saw her safe and sound, I absolutely couldn't control the flutter in my heart. I'd rather choose the needle-in-a-haystack investigation method than ever gamble with her life again. I went back to the convenience store, bought some things. The kind-hearted staff handed me a clean towel, telling me to dry the rainwater on my head. I said thank you, then wiped off the water on my body. I put my phone in a waterproof bag. Opening my umbrella again, I stepped into the heavy rain and strong wind. Walking towards the fateful crime scene, just as I stepped into the rain, a strong gust of wind almost broke the umbrella's ribs. I stepped on the muddy ground and broken glass. Finally reaching the starting point of the camera's blind spot area. This is the exact place mentioned multiple times in the trace evidence report of the previous life as the crime scene. My waterproof watch glowed faintly, showing 22:17. A strong wind suddenly rose, flipping the umbrella canopy inside out. I decisively threw the umbrella away. Ignoring the cold rain whipping against my head and face, the phone in the waterproof bag vibrated. I leaned against the damp brick wall and opened the home surveillance camera to look. In the warm yellow light, Bai Wei was curled up in a corner of the sofa, her legs trembling slightly with unease. Her eyes constantly looked towards the door, that gaze carrying anticipation. And a bit of worry, just wait a little longer. Don't rush. At the end of the alley, a series of metal clashing sounds suddenly echoed. I immediately became alert and tiptoed over, unexpectedly seeing a familiar person. It was the famous school boss of Shanghai No. 2 High School. At this moment, he was sitting under the rain-sheltering awning of an illegal construction site, using a fruit knife to peel an apple. Isn't this old goo? In the middle of the night with such heavy wind and rain. Not even bringing an umbrella. What are you doing running over here? I had some business outside. My umbrella was broken by the wind. So, what is he doing here in the middle of the night? Jiang Yin used the tip of his knife to flick up the wrinkled peel in the plastic bag. I knew his identity as the school boss was just a facade. His family was very poor, and his mother suffered from severe uremia. Brought some fruit for the old lady, ended up being chased back. The edges of his rain boots were stained with anti-slip gypsum commonly used in hospital corridors. On his body, there was also the distinct smell of disinfectant from the intensive care unit. What are you doing standing in the rain? Come here quickly. My house is right next door. Let me lend you an umbrella. Just as I stepped under the awning, Jiang Yan's phone suddenly rang incessantly. From the other end came the anxious voice of a nurse, saying that his mother's blood oxygen level had suddenly dropped sharply. Jiang Yan's face changed in the blink of an eye. The fruit knife fell into the puddle with a plop. He didn't even have time to say a word of greeting, turning around and rushing like crazy into the stormy rain. I bent down and picked up the knife from the muddy puddle, a piercing cold sensation transmitting to me. After careful inspection, I completely confirmed that at this time. Appearing at this location, the size and style matched perfectly. This was the key murder weapon that killed Bai Wei in the previous life. If the murder weapon was accidentally dropped by Jiang Yan, then the real culprit would very likely be here within the next half hour. Passing by and picking it up, I took a deep breath, threw the knife back to its original spot, relying on my years of criminal investigation experience. I retreated into the darkness, quietly hiding, the rain pouring down. 22:35. A homeless man reeking of alcohol stumbled and fell, shrinking himself to hide under the awning. He wiped off the water, his canvas shoes covered in mud stepping heavily on the knife handle, causing the knife blade to sink deep into the mud. Then he took his remaining half bottle of alcohol and stumbled away. 2247. A delivery man riding a bike braked hard to take shelter from the rain, accidentally stepping on the spine of the knife and taking a fall. He cursed as he crawled up, his foot kicking the knife blade into the drainage crevice, the mud immediately burying the entire knife. Time passed at 22:55. The knife was buried by mud. It would be extremely difficult for anyone to accidentally see it. The gap to Bai Wei's estimated time of death in the previous life was only down to the last few minutes. Suddenly a figure wearing a black raincoat stumbled, then squatted down. My entire body's muscles instantly tensed up like a bowstring. Right at the moment, he reached out and grabbed the knife handle. On the wrist revealed from the sleeve, a highly conspicuous sulfuric acid burn scar was clearly visible. I suddenly stepped out from the darkness, relying on the faint light to completely clearly see the face under the raincoat. Unexpectedly, it was the famous good guy of Shanghai No. 2 High School. The chemistry teacher, Li Mingyuan. Great waves surged in my heart. 3 months ago, it was him who protected the students playing in the laboratory, while he himself got burned by sulfuric acid, and afterwards he even gently comforted the student who caused the accident. He was also famous for being henpecked, with a reputation for kindness throughout the neighborhood. But if the culprit was him, then all the doubts in the previous life could be explained. In the previous life, Bai Wei was attacked in a pitch-black alley, but there were no signs of fleeing. In such a completely helpless situation amid the stormy night, Bai Wei didn't have the slightest defense. Thinking of this, I felt extremely heartbroken, but I couldn't act without thinking. After all, the current Li Mingyuan hadn't committed the crime yet. I decided to use my criminal investigation skills to probe his purpose for being out late at night. Mr. Li. Li Mingyuan immediately looked up, seeing my soaking wet appearance. His face was full of surprise and concern. Gu Nanqing, why are you as wet as a drowned rat? I came out for some business and got stuck because of the rain. Mr. Li, why did you come out in such heavy rain? I stared intently at his face, sharply catching a flash of hesitation passing through his eyes. It's nothing. Just came out to buy a pack of cigarettes. He was lying. Li Mingyuan completely didn't smoke. Moreover, he was universally recognized as a family man. My raincoat is wide. Come in here to take shelter for now. I'll take you to my house, then lend you a raincoat to wear back. He still maintained that gentle and friendly face. I dazedly nodded, ducking into his raincoat. While squeezing in, I noticed his gaze, unconsciously glancing over the adult vending machine nearby, then quickly withdrawing it. He put his arm around my shoulder. On the way, I was like someone who lost their soul. Arriving at the door of his house, Li Mingyuan suddenly pulled out his phone, sent a message, then quickly put it away. I forgot to bring my keys. Wait a moment, but at this time I clearly felt that he was wearing a bunch of keys on his waist. This was the second time he lied tonight. My suspicion grew bigger and bigger. A moment later, the room door finally opened. The person who opened the door was Li Mingyuan's wife, also a chemistry teacher at the same school, Shun Qing. She was wearing a silk nightgown, the belt tied loosely, her cheeks flushed. Warm light spilled out from the entryway. I caught a glimpse of a red wine bottle lying tilted on the coffee table in the living room. Scented candles were burning and rose petals were scattered around. The air was filled with a lingering, ambiguous fragrance. Right at this moment, my mind suddenly cleared up. All the clues immediately connected into a clear chain of events. Tonight, Mr. Li originally planned to be romantic with his wife, but he found out the adult supplies had run out, so he had to brave the rain to go out and buy them. Following the habit of a good person, he casually cleaned up the trash at the drain, accidentally picking up that fruit knife, and also because he accidentally ran into me. He felt awkward going to buy the supplies again, and wasn't at ease leaving me alone. So he brought me back here, and just now pretending not to bring his keys while texting was just to give his wife, who was wearing nightwear, time to change clothes. All of his abnormal behaviors at this moment now had a reasonable explanation. Why are you so wet like a drowned rat? I'm so sorry. Quickly take this towel to dry off. Thank you, ma'am. I took the towel to dry my hair, but the suspicion in my heart turned into a greater bewilderment. If he was still such a good person, if his wife was full of anticipation, waiting for him to come home to make love, would such a man really develop malicious intentions toward a female student on the street, then kill her and dump her body? Xin noticed that Li Mingyuan was still holding a sharp knife in his hand. She curiously asked, "Where did you pick up this knife that is so sharp?" "I picked it up at the mouth of the drain. It was blocking quite a lot of trash. Luckily, I ran into Gu Nanxing, so I forgot to throw it away," Li Mingyuan said as he was about to throw the knife into the trash can. But I suddenly realized something was wrong. "Wait a minute, Mr. Li. Let me see this knife for a second." Li Mingyuan doubtfully turned the knife around, the tip pointing inward, holding the handle outward to hand it to me. This unconscious action to avoid causing injury once again proved the gentleness deep in his bones. I took the fruit knife and carefully examined it. My expression immediately changed. Earlier the light was too dim, so I couldn't see clearly. The blade of this knife actually had a very small chip. This was clearly caused by Jiang Yin using it to cut hard objects. The forensic report completely did not mention the knife blade being chipped. The cut mark would have a distinct difference, which means the real murder weapon is not this knife at all. I had targeted the wrong object entirely. I hurriedly flipped my wrist to glance at my watch. It was already 2300 hours. The real culprit might have only just appeared at this time. My heart burned like fire. I hastily stuffed the bath towel back to Xin. "Sorry, Mr. Li. It's too late. I have to go home right away. Please allow me to borrow your raincoat." I stuffed the knife handle back into Li Mingyuan's hand, threw on the raincoat, then rushed head first into the heavy rain, running like crazy nonstop back to the crime scene. I searched around that area for several laps. Occasionally, there were pedestrians hurrying by, but they completely didn't look like culprits who would stop in the middle of the road to commit a crime. 23:30. The streets were completely empty. I took out my phone to check the surveillance camera. Bai Wei was shrinking on the sofa, so sleepy she was nodding off like a chicken pecking a grain, but still trying to fight off the drowsiness. Occasionally looking towards the door, waiting for me to come home, I clenched my fists tightly, decisively taking off the raincoat, continuing to walk around the pitch-black crime scene until past midnight. Still not seeing any suspicious figures, my heart was engulfed again by a deep feeling of helplessness and coldness. Did I really miss it? If I couldn't find the culprit, how could Bai Wei's unjust grievance from the previous life be washed clean? I raised my head, letting the heavy rain slap my face. My eyes grew more and more determined. Suddenly my phone vibrated. I immediately opened the surveillance camera. On the screen Bai Wei, although drowsy and dazed, still tried to suppress her fear of loneliness and walked to the door, pacing back and forth with a face full of worry. "Hello, hello, hello." The sudden call made her startle. She hastily looked towards the surveillance camera. "Gu Nanxing, I have some business, so I'll be back late. I'll be back right away. If you're sleepy, just sleep first. It's good that you're okay. I'm not sleepy yet. I'll wait for you to come back." She squeezed out a gentle smile to the camera. After the sentence, "I promise to be right back," she dragged her tired body to curl up inside the blanket again. I finally felt much more at ease. Looking at the deserted street, I stood under the pouring rain, letting the freezing water pour down on me. This has been my habit for many years. Cold water can make my brain work quickly. I began to frantically recall everything I encountered tonight. The convenience store staff, Yi Ci, the three thugs. I forced myself to put everyone on the suspect list. Yi Ci, when he was robbed by the thugs, his backpack was turned upside down. Not a single penny could be found on him. Not to mention the murder weapon. Eliminated. The three thugs, although they had a motive, the type of knife they held didn't match at all. Eliminated. The knife that the homeless man and the delivery man came into contact with was also not the real murder weapon. After eliminating everyone who was impossible, my memory rewound. Locking onto a person who I originally thought was absolutely impossible. Jiang Yin. Jiang Yin ran to the hospital because his mother was seriously ill and dropped the knife at the scene. But what if his mother's condition quickly stabilized? Half an hour was enough for him to make a round trip to the hospital and back. What if on the way back, he found his knife missing, and then went to a nearby store to buy a new fruit knife? In the case file, there was indeed a record that between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. that night, someone braved the rain to buy a fruit knife. And the time he returned happened to perfectly avoid the time Mr. Lee and I went to his house. Stringing everything together, the suspicion towards Jiang Yin was immediately magnified infinitely. To verify this deduction is very simple. Just go to Jiang Yin's house and knock on the door now. If he had returned home and really bought a new knife, then the suspicion towards him would be completely confirmed. I follow my memory and approach his house. My heart tightened, sinking. The lights in his house were actually on. I took a deep breath, knocked on the door. The door opened. Jiang Yin was bare-chested, a towel draped over his head. Old goo. What's wrong with you? It's so late, and you haven't gone home. Where did you get this raincoat? The mysterious person in the file who braved the rain to buy a knife late at night was really him. Mr. Lee lent it to me. Did you just get back? That's right. Earlier something happened with my mom. I was in such a hurry, I forgot to lend you an umbrella. It's so late at night. Why aren't you going home? Nothing, just like walking in the rain around the streets. Earlier you ran in such a hurry you dropped your knife. Why did you buy a new knife? Holy shit. No wonder I searched all my pockets and couldn't find it anywhere. Where did it drop? Mr. Lee picked it up and threw it in the trash can. Then whatever. Anyway, that knife was used to cut wood, so the blade was chipped. It was on the way, so I bought a new knife. He laughed casually, but my heart was heavy. The time he returned home perfectly matched the time of the crime. Moreover, he really bought a murder weapon of the same type. It was basically impossible to eliminate the suspicion. I weighed my thoughts, deciding to probe directly. Jiang Yin, we are good friends, right? How can we only be counted as that? Everyone is good brothers. Have you run into some trouble? Just tell your brother straight. Looking at his righteous appearance, I looked straight into his eyes. I don't hope one day to see you go to jail for committing a crime. Whatever you do, you should consider the consequences. Your auntie cannot go without your care. Don't do anything that violates the law. Jiang Yin was stunned. He completely misunderstood my meaning, thinking that I already knew the secret that he intended to sell fake cigarettes at school. He was not only not angry, but on the contrary, extremely touched that I braved the rain to advise him against it. Don't worry, others might not know my style of doing things. Don't tell me you don't know. I won't do it. Seeing that my goal was achieved, I stood up to take my leave. I completely didn't know that this unintentional warning made him completely give up the idea of selling fake cigarettes. When I turned and stepped into the rain, behind me, he did the immature gesture of thumping his chest, making a vow, and identifying me as his good brother for life. With a complex mood, I said goodbye to Jiang Yin. Holding Mr. Lee's raincoat, I quietly returned to his front door. Putting the raincoat down from inside the house, some faint noises that made people blush and heartbeat fast transmitted out, so I didn't make a sound to bother them. Just like that, I walked back home in the heavy rain, my mood gradually feeling much more relaxed. If Jiang Yin was really the culprit, then at least he was currently still in a stage where he could be correctly guided to eliminate evil thoughts. Tonight, I had met so many people. Temporarily, there was no one more suspicious than him. Disclaimer. All content, characters, settings, and events are products of my imagination and were created for entertainment purposes only.